Hey guys, what's up? It's ItsAnnaLouise, and today I have a very special video planned. I am doing a collab with my really good friend Jeremy from Jeremy's Wild Studios here on YouTube, and I'm really excited to do this. Jeremy's a good friend. He's so sweet and kind, and he has a really good channel, and I was really happy about this. We were talking about collabing and talking about future animals that we both wanted, and it turns out that he wants possibly an animal that I have, and I want an animal that he has, which if you can tell by this title, it's a leopard gecko. Oh my gosh, I want one so bad. And so anyway, we paired up to do a video where I am asking questions to him about leopard gecko care, and he asked questions to me about rat care, and I answer those for him. So he does have a video up on his channel. Make sure to check him out. I'm gonna leave him linked below and in the iCards above. But for my video, I'm asking him questions about leopard gecko because I really want one so bad. I've wanted one for a while now. It's literally the next pet on my list to get. I think they're so beautiful and cute and adorable, and every time I see pictures or videos of leopard geckos, I'm just like, I want one now. So I'm really excited, and I'm excited to find out everything about leopard geckos from Jeremy. And yeah, let's just go ahead and get right into the video because I really can't wait to ask these any longer.
Hey ItsAnnaLouise, thanks for having me on your channel. I appreciate it. Today I'm joined by Ghost, my leopard gecko.
Alright, so my first question that I have for you is, what size enclosure should I put my leopard gecko in? I see so many people use, honestly, different types of enclosures, like exoterras, tubs, and fish tanks. So if you could maybe tell me for those 3 different ones, so maybe I can make the right decision for me, because I am so stumped on that. I would definitely like to know the proper size for each of those and then kind of go from there.
So a lot of care guides say that the minimum floor space for a leopard gecko is 12 inches by 12 inches, but it's pretty unanimously agreed that bigger is better. A lot of people will say if you use an aquarium style enclosure, then the minimum tank size should be about 10 gallons. However, once you start putting everything that you need into the aquarium, you'll find that that's really not enough room at all. I keep Ghost here in a 20-gallon long aquarium, which is about 2.5 feet long by 12 inches deep. I also keep a lid on it to keep him from escaping. The downside to using an aquarium like I do is it doesn't have front opening doors, and so when I go in to pick him up, he actually thinks I'm a predator coming at him from above. And so getting him out of his enclosure is always a little rough on him. If I could go back and get a different kind of enclosure for him, I would get something like an exoterra that has front opening doors. So that way, when I go to get him out of the enclosure, I'm not coming at him from above and triggering his prey instinct. A lot of people also like to keep their leopard geckos in plastic bin tubs, and that's absolutely fine as long as you provide enough space and enough enrichment.
Alright, so my second question is, what are the best types of foods, and what are all the types of foods for leopard geckos?
Leopard geckos like a variety of different types of worms and insects. Things like mealworms and superworms and hornworms are really good for them, as well as crickets and dubia roaches. They are insectivores, and they do need to be provided with living insects in order to trigger their predator instinct and make them want to eat. If they don't see it moving, they're not going to want to eat it. Of course, different leopard geckos have different preferences. Ghost here is not a fan of superworms or mealworms, but he loves crickets and he loves hornworms. He also tolerates dubia roaches. But whenever I provide him with mealworms or superworms, he turns his nose up at them. He wants nothing to do with them. The most nutritious items that you can feed your leopard gecko are actually dubia roaches, followed by things like hornworms and crickets. So lucky for me, the kinds of insects and worms that Ghost turns his nose up to are the ones that really aren't that nutritious for him to begin with.
And number 3, what are the basic needs of a leopard gecko? I see so many people do different things, so I'm just curious as to what are the basic needs of a leopard gecko.
A leopard gecko needs enough room to explore without feeling trapped. They also need a varied diet rather than just eating one kind of insect all the time. And that diet needs to be supplemented with different kinds of vitamins and calcium. They also require low humidity. They come from a very arid and dry climate. Not desert, but arid and dry. In the wild, they don't live on sand, they live on a very dry and rocky terrain. But that said, they do need to be given a humid area where they can go when they need to shed. This is often referred to as a humid hide, or a moist hide, or a shed box. They also need a temperature gradient inside their enclosure, so they can thermoregulate. and they can pick what temperature they want to be within their enclosure. People usually accomplish this by putting a heat mat underneath one side of the enclosure that provides them with the hot side, and then the other side would be their cool side where they can go when they don't want to be hot. In addition to their humid hide or shed box, they also need two other hiding places, one on the warm end and one on the cool end. They're a very timid and shy species, and they do like to spend a lot of time hiding. That's what helps them feel safe and secure. They're a very small lizard, and a lot of things predate on them in the wild, and so their number one concern is pretty much always not getting eaten. Another basic need of leopard geckos is that they need to be housed individually. They are not a social species at all. If you keep two males together, they will fight. If you keep a male and a female together, they will breed. And some people will say that in some cases, some females can be kept together. And I suppose that's true. However, I've heard enough horror stories of that going horribly wrong to believe it's just not worth the chance.
So another question is, what type of enrichment do leopard geckos need? I'm not used to reptiles. I had a bearded dragon a long time ago, but other than that, I don't really know a lot about them or what they need for enrichment, especially obviously for leopard geckos, so I'm definitely curious about that.
As far as enrichment goes, leopard geckos and other reptiles are very different than, say, for example, a cat or a dog or a bird or even a rat. They don't really need toys to play with or anything like that. Instead, what you should do is you should try to mimic their natural environment as much as possible. Give them lots of rocks and cork bark to climb on, as well as things like fake plants or fake vines for them to explore and hide in. Another great way to provide enrichment to leopard geckos is to let them hunt crickets. Ghost loves to hunt crickets. If I put like 3 or 4 crickets in his enclosure and just let him hunt them, he has a blast. And then of course there's also handling. The more you handle your leopard gecko, the more used to it and hand-tamed they'll become. And they really do appreciate that opportunity to get out of their enclosure and explore a little bit more.
So I know that leopard geckos need a heating pad, and I was wondering what temperature that you need to actually keep that at.
If you're going to use a heat mat, make sure you have it connected to a thermostat, so that way you can actually control the temperature of that heat mat. And that thermostat needs to be set somewhere between 90 and 92 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat mat should be placed at one end of the enclosure, so that way your gecko can go and sit on the warm spot when it wants to be warm, but can get away from that warm spot when it wants to cool down.
So I know for my rats there are techniques to get them to bond with you. Are there any kind of techniques to get a leopard gecko to bond with you?
Daily handling is a great way to get your leopard gecko to bond with you. As you can see, Ghost here is climbing all over me. I handle him multiple times a week, every week, just to maintain that bond with him. And make sure that when you do handle your leopard gecko that you're very careful and gentle with them, not rough. They will remember if you're rough with them. You want to make your handling sessions with them be as stress-free as possible, so that way they realize that you're no threat to them and they're in no danger when you're handling them. Another great way to bond with your leopard gecko is to hand feed them. Very quickly, they'll realize that you're the bringer of food, and they'll associate you with good things.
Alright, so my next question is, do you know a good place to get a leopard gecko? Pet store, breeder, and do you know any good breeders?
I would not recommend a chain pet store, because a lot of chain pet stores tend to take questionable care of their leopard geckos. And in fact, most of them won't even be able to tell you what morph you've bought. They'll just label them as fancy. But if you manage to find a specialty reptile store or a more local pet store kind of situation where they take really good care of their animals, that might be a good option for you. I'd also recommend going to reptile expos in your area, so that way you can meet and talk to breeders directly and see what they have for sale. You can ask them lots of questions about the geckos they're selling, and you can even hold and handle the geckos before deciding which one you want to take home. I got Ghost here at a reptile expo from a local breeder. Now some people do like to order their reptiles online and have them shipped to them. I've never personally done this, so I can't really vouch for any particular seller or breeder. However, I will say, just make sure you read a lot of reviews about any breeder you're considering working with.
So I've heard a lot about leopard geckos needing like extra supplement powders or calcium and calcium with D3, stuff like that. I'm wondering exactly what they need in terms of like extra things.
I know the whole vitamin supplements and calcium with D3 and calcium without D3 is very confusing at first, and so let me just kind of break it down for you. Leopard geckos need to be provided with a bowl of calcium powder pretty much at all times unless they eat it excessively. If you start to notice they're eating it excessively, then you should regulate how often they have access to that calcium powder. But in most cases, a bowl of calcium without D3, so they don't overdose on D3, should be provided to them pretty much at all times, just left in their enclosure. When it comes to dusting their food, some people will say you should dust it with calcium with D3 on certain days and dust it with a multivitamin on other days, while other people will say you can just blend the multivitamin and the calcium with D3 together and dust your feeder insects that way. So I keep a bowl of Repticalcium without D3 in Ghost's enclosure at pretty much all times. When I dust his food, sometimes I dust it with a mixture of Reptivite, which is a multivitamin, with D3, and the Repticalcium without D3, since the Reptivite already has D3. 2 or 3 days a week, I won't dust it with the Reptivite, I'll just dust it with straight up calcium powder. And when I do that, I use the calcium with D3.
And finally, I'm wondering about the best way to do a damp/humid hide. I know the leopard geckos have to have one, but I'm just wondering what you feel is best and easiest and most efficient for actually doing one.
So there's a few different ways that you can do a humid or damp hide for a leopard gecko. One way is that you can actually buy a little cave that has a top piece and a bottom piece. And you can put some sort of material or substance inside of that, like eco earth or sphagnum moss or even paper towels, and you can keep that substance wet by misting it every day. That's what I do. You can also build your own humid hide if you don't want to go with something that's store-bought and pre-made. A lot of people will use an old takeout container or an old Tupperware container to do this. Again, though, you want to put some sort of substance inside of that that will hold humidity and is safe for your leopard gecko, such as wet eco earth or sphagnum moss or paper towels. Thank you so much for having Ghost and I on your channel today. And guys, make sure you go check out the video on my channel to see which one of Anna's animals I'm thinking about getting.
Alright you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoyed this collab. I really enjoyed doing it. I'm so happy to do it. And like I said, I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And I do have merch out, which you can get at this website right here. And I also have a P.O. box in case you want to send me anything. I open everything on camera. This is the address right here. It is always so much fun to open things from you guys. And other than that, like I said, please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to my channel, which you can do by hitting my face right up here. And you can watch other of my videos by clicking right over here, and I really hope that you'll do so. And I hope you guys have a great day or night or whenever you may be watching this, and I will see you guys in my next video.